everyone.
Welcome today on this Wednesday at noon.
On this Wednesday at noon. I'm Erica Ives. I'm the CEO here at Mindfulpath.
And I'm Stephanie Gilbert. I'm the program director here at Mindfulpath.
And we are, as always, so happy to be here with you all today. Today we're talking about something that is so important. And I believe it's so important to improve our quality of life. And that is mindfulness. I know you have a great quote to start us off with today.
So
Take it away.
Thank you. So this quote is from Jon Kabat-Zinn, and he is defining mindfulness. And I'm just going to read it word for word. Mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally.
Okay, let's break it down. Let's start with the first part. Can you read that very first part again?
Sure. The first part, mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way.
Okay. What does that mean?
Well, to me, and breaking it down, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about mindfulness. Mm-hmm. So to use one of the words that we use often at Mindfulpath with intention. So I take the paying attention in a particular way as being very intentional in what you are putting your attention to.
Right. Yeah. And I also doing it in a way where you have a lot of curiosity. I think staying curious is really, really important. Right.
Absolutely.
What was the next part?
So on purpose in the present moment.
Okay. On purpose with intention, as you talked about. Can you share with us, Steph, a little more about what intention means?
Sure. I think, intention in this term means, if I'm using in mindfulness, if I am intentional in mindfulness, it means that I am putting intention into where I am drawing my mental attention to. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let's think about even like as we're talking right now. I'm
practicing mindfulness.
I'm being very intentional in when you're speaking to me, I'm listening versus not thinking about what I'm going to say next. And often that can happen in conversations. We have an intention we come in with, maybe it's to get a point across, and we miss the intention of being mindfulness, which is to hear and relate to the other person in the room.
Right. And to be in the here and now and in the present moment, like you just talked about. Like in this moment, we have people who have joined us today. So they came in with an intention, right, to join us on Facebook. One of the things that happens is we tend to put a lot of judgments on ourselves. And have a lot of self-criticism, right? Can you talk a little about how that impedes in the practice of mindfulness?
Well, it impedes in a way that it really gets in the way of being able to be present. And in my experience, and if I am, for instance, the example you gave, if I am coming in to this talk and I am stuck in my self-judgment, it takes away the ability for me to be present with you. Right. It also takes away the ability for maybe me to get something out of the experience because I've taken myself out of the experience. I'm now in my self-judgment. I'm not sitting with you in the conversation and engaging and learning and growing.
Right. And so much gets missed when we don't practice mindfulness, right? We miss those moments that can mean so much. And mindfulness is about helping us through distressing moments. That's one aspect of mindfulness, right?
Yes. And just to add on, because I feel like we can also talk about the non-judgmentally part.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
because if we're in the judgment, it's going to take us out of the here and now. If
Right.
we're thinking about the intention we have 5 hours from now, it's going to take us out of the here and now. Even if we want to change the experience, you talked about getting through difficult moments. It's not that we're trying to change the difficult moments, it's that we're trying to be present in the difficult moments and move through it.
Right.
Um,
And also just what we were saying, like it's not just even about the distressing times. It's also about how we show up in the pleasant times too. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a lot. If anyone is interested in looking up John Kabat-Zinn's work a little bit
It's
more,
amazing.
he's the innovator in mindfulness tools and using it for mental health. But that's big in what his research is recognizing when you're not in pain, recognizing when you feel pleasant emotions. Because
Mhm.
also then if we recognize, the more we recognize, the more we can build on it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
You know, I think that sometimes mindfulness, a lot of people can have resistance to it because they come in with a lot of preconceived notions about it. Some of the preconceived notions that I've heard from people are um, also getting it confused a little bit with meditation and coming with, oh no, I can't do that. My mind will never quiet, and those sorts of things. Oh, it's too like new age, or believing, there's a religious component to it. So oftentimes it really gets met with resistance.
Mhm. And I wonder if, Erica, we might talk about maybe some ways we've worked with people to help them through that resistance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you want to share, maybe how would you answer somebody if they said, "Well, I just can't do it. I can't quiet my mind."
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, number one, we can't stop thoughts. Thoughts are going to come, right? I mean, it's really about what we do with the thoughts, not stopping them. And I have found that alone gives people um, uh, a little bit more opening to
Mhm.
it. Uh, the other thing is, I use a lot of examples on how mindfulness can improve your quality of life,
Mhm.
and talking about it in a real relational aspect also. Obviously it's about also what happens within you, but we talked about last week, with relationships, that interpersonal component. And I have found that oftentimes when I talk to people about how it can improve their relationships, they sometimes are a little bit more open to that as well.
Mhm. That's a really interesting kind of way of shifting the focus on and talking about the way it can benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've often used examples similar to that, but I like the relational component that you bring in
Mm-hmm.
with mindfulness.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Staying mindful, right? Coming back to the here and now. This is a great example. Um, Without judgment, because I'm in this space. My dogs clearly are going to bark. I'm at home, and it's okay. It is what it is, right?
Versus, and I wonder if we might use this as an example, versus like what would happen to you if you were in resistance of that?
Uh, I would become, number one, very apologetic. That is usually my first go-to. I'm really sorry. I should have made sure that maybe my dogs were outside, those sorts of things. So gone into that place. But because of practice, and it has taken a lot of practice, even if that thought comes For a second, I simply acknowledge and just come back into the here and now.
Mhm. And I think that's a great example. I'm actually really glad you barked,
Is
because
that? Thank you,
you
Tay.
could you could see the benefits of, if you'd gone into that apologetic, like, it would have maybe totally taken you out of the conversation,
Right.
and you would have been having feelings of guilt or shame or whatever it is. And instead, it is what it is,
Hmm.
really. And the reality is you can't control his barking in this moment.
No, but I can control how I choose to react to it.
Yeah.
Right. And reacting non judgmentally and with acceptance. And I think this concept also of acceptance, it's a big term, and maybe we should try and break that down a little bit too.
Sure. Yeah, it's a huge term, and I think it's often misunderstood.
Mhm.
So, in breaking it down, I would first make the point, and I often do this when I'm working too.
Mhm.
Acceptance doesn't mean that we're saying something's okay.
That's right.
It doesn't mean we're agreeing with anything. It doesn't mean that we're going to become complacent and not do anything after the acceptance.
Mhm.
I look at acceptance as the first step rather than the last step.
Oh, I love that. Can
Mhm.
you talk about that a little bit more?
Sure, in that, and I'll just go back to maybe the barking as the example.
Okay,
If
great.
if you were not accepting of that, you're going to be constantly in this push pull of, like, trying to change a situation, trying to ignore the situation, trying to do something with the situation. And it's
Mhm.
most likely not going to work
Mhm.
because you're not at a place where what you're working from is the situation itself. You're working from the judgment.
Mhm.
This is
Mhm.
a bad situation and I don't like it and I want to change it.
Mhm.
Versus acceptance, this is where we're at. And I think
Right.
you said something to that effect earlier.
Right.
If
Right.
we can accept the situation for what it is, good, bad, indifferent, whatever label we're putting on it, we're here, we're in the present. This is where we're working from. Now, after the acceptance piece, now we can see maybe what is in our control. Like you said, I can control how I feel and how I respond.
Right. How I respond. Right. Mhm.
That
Most
was you.
definitely.
That was you in the moment, accepting, and then how do I respond?
Mhm. Mhm. And mindfulness is something, just to move backwards a little bit, that we want to incorporate into our daily lives. So, I like to give a couple examples
Yeah.
of things, ways that maybe I practice mindfulness that work for me. And one of the ways I do that is the first thing when I wake up in the morning, right? I love to open my blinds. I love my window open. I love to let in the light and have just those at least few moments where I get myself grounded into the here and now without, oftentimes we go into, oh my gosh, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. So if that comes, just saying, yes, I'm going to get to those things. But right now, here I am. So, first step is observing what's happening for you. So, sometimes that happens to me right when I wake up, have a lot to do. I observe it. I'm able to describe what it is that's happening for me without judgment, and then participate in an action by saying, now I'm going to just put that here, and I'm going to be here, and I'm going to enjoy the sunlight, the breeze, and just being alive. The next thing I do, for me, you and I both love coffee. I The experience around my coffee is just, I really practice mindfulness in that, I come downstairs and I love the smell of the coffee. I love the sound of the coffee grinds. I love pouring my coffee. I love holding the cup in my hand. And so it's really about like being slow and being in it and enjoying it, right? Well, at least that act, it's very enjoyable to me. And so I can really be in the moment. And again, it doesn't mean that sometimes those thoughts are going to come back in of what I have to do today, but it's about just acknowledging them, just simply acknowledging them and without judgment and saying, okay, let me get back to this, into the moment. And that's just an example of one thing I do, but I really work to practice mindfulness throughout my day and being as present as possible.
Mhm. And I think that it's a practice. Do you find that it gets easier the more you practice? Because I find
Definitely.
that, yeah. And it's excellent to just to point out like these tools are, I think, wonderful for everyone. But when we're talking about any kind of anxiety, kind of alluded to like things that you might need to do throughout the day and that coming in as a thought,
Mhm.
it's good for relief of anxiety to practice staying in the present, because
Right.
ultimately when you're pouring your coffee you're not going to hopefully be working on your to-do list.
That's right. That's
That's
right.
later in the day.
Right. And Marsha Linham, who is the founder of dialectical behavioral therapy, she talks about the importance was doing one thing mindfully at a time, because we tend to be, a lot of us, multitaskers. And when we're too much of a multitasker, we may miss something. So really about, okay, I have to take care of this. This is what I'm going to be focused on. Now, again, it does not mean that you might not have some distractions, right? But putting that, one thing mindfully at a time concept into play, I have found for me has been really beneficial in my life.
I find it very beneficial too. And
Hmm.
DBT, what you're referring to, has a whole module on
Right.
mindfulness. So a lot
Hmm.
of different tools, which I really, depending on your situation and the type of mindfulness you might need in the moment, they're
Hmm.
excellent tools though.
Hmm.
And just to add, when you said the distressing thoughts or just maybe neutral thoughts are coming in, and you said
Right.
that they could come in, I would say that they probably will come in.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
normal. That's just an opportunity to notice the thought and then bring yourself back to the present
Hmm.
versus judging yourself for, oh, I'm not doing it right. Or why can't these thoughts go away? Like, what should I be doing? What else should I be doing? Then you're caught up in the thoughts. Then,
Right.
then you're missing your cup of coffee.
Then you're missing your cup of coffee, and you're missing moments. They slip by us. And this is a practice. That's really important to let people know. Like, this is not something you're gonna be, gain mastery over, like, in a week. This is just about practice. Again, Marsha Linham says practice, practice, practice is how we get to mastery, and practicing like little bits at a time. So if you're able to even practice it, like just saying a thought comes up and acknowledging it and then just coming back, and you're able to come back for, a minute.
Mhm.
Unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. I go back though to that piece about without judgment, because I think, and I have found through my work with clients, that also really does tend to be one of the most difficult pieces.
I wonder if you might expand a little bit. Why do you think that because I find that too. Why do you think it's one of the most difficult pieces for people to take on board?
I just think we're at such a fast paced society, and this belief of like, also the more we achieve, the better we are. and do. And it's hard for people to be because we are doing, and doing is met with um, viewing yourself and having others view you oftentimes as more successful, more efficient, better, you know?
I agree. And I also think that we're also a results society in that same way. So there's not necessarily a result you're going to see very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
um, in a more tangible way where we're used to seeing, a payoff or a benefit right away. The benefit of being more present in your life might not be up high on that list when you first start. So it's really orienting yourself to a different set of, I feel like, goals in a way.
Right. And that brings it also into that concept of interpersonally too. That again, there's no perfection to this.
No.
Small bits practicing at a time, and it will improve your relationship with yourself. Because the other component also is about having some self-compassion, you know, and that perfectionistic voice can be really, really dangerous.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I do. I think it gets validated in society in some way. Exactly
Mm-hmm.
what you're talking about, the results oriented, and we're always doing, and that perfectionism can be seen as a good quality in some settings, but I think
Mm-hmm.
it negatively impacts us, especially the way we think about ourselves.
Right, right. Maybe we can share with everybody a couple more exercises that they can do to practice mindfulness.
Sure. There's a couple I use in terms of just getting kind of reoriented to the room and
Okay.
in your body. So there's one, and maybe some of you all have heard of it before. It's the 5 4 3 2 1.
Mhm.
And when we think of our five senses, it's based on that. So looking around the room, whatever space you're in, and finding five things, and just mentally to yourself identifying five things that you see. So, for example, I have a notebook in front of me and a phone and a pen, computer, candle. And it could be just as simple as that. And then you go on to four things you can feel.
Okay.
So it may be, if you're not physically holding something, it may be like the sensation of your clothing on your
Mhm.
body or the chair underneath you,
Right.
your feet in shoes,
Mhm.
um, the way like your hands feel when they're put together, whatever feelings that you can kind of connect to.
Mhm.
Three things you can hear.
A
So it might
plane,
be tank, yeah.
a tank, a plane,
Hmm.
and a bird.
Hmm. Two things you can smell.
I smell my coffee
Hmm.
that's next to me. Um, I smell my patchouli oil.
Hmm. And
Everybody who walks in my home smells that.
one thing that you can taste.
Well, I ate some cantaloupe prior to this, and I still have the flavor
Hmm.
of that in my mouth.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So
I love that exercise.
I was going to ask you, imagine right now, how do you can you check in and see if you feel any more kind of present?
Yeah, I do. I do.
It really orients you to your space too, which is why I
Right,
like it.
right,
Um,
right.
and then there's another one, and you can do these two together, or you could just use them separately. It's
Wait, Steph, can people find that online, that exercise?
you can, I think you can probably Google the 5 4 3 2 1
Okay,
meditation exercise.
great.
Um, it's fair. I feel like it's one that you can definitely find online. You can
Okay.
also find the second one online. There are variations to it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the basis is it's a breathing exercise, and you're going to breathe out for longer than you breathe in.
Mm-hmm.
That's the basis. So what I would recommend is you can do this anywhere you are.
Mm-hmm.
Silently, we're going to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 5 to 7 seconds, depending on your comfort level, and try to breathe out for 8. So 4, 5 to 6, 8. And you can kind of play around with that a little bit to your comfort level. You don't want to get uncomfortable. And as you practice more, you might be able to hold a little bit longer and have the breath out go a little bit longer. But really,
And one thing with that, just to go back to like that self-critical voice that oftentimes people have, like if you're not able to hold it for that period of time, it's okay. There, again, that perfectionistic voice can be really dangerous. And so part of mindfulness is, again, self-compassion and just simply acknowledging, okay, I was only able, to blow up for 3.
and that's okay. And that's
Right.
really, it's
That's
really
right.
okay.
It's really okay. And giving yourself permission.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in that way, then it's another opportunity to practice mindfulness, because you're
Right.
going to be noticing the judgment and then letting it go and staying in the present.
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
Mm-hmm.
it's all part of the practice. There's really not a wrong way to do mindfulness. Whatever
Except
comes up,
when you're in that self-critical voice.
I
Right.
mean, whatever comes up, comes up.
Comes up. That's right. That's right. It's about, and again, it's going to come, but it's about acknowledging and getting yourself back into the here and now without judgment.
Mhm.
And even if you do start and you are judgmental, just acknowledge that you're being judgmental.
Mhm.
Right? Because you don't want to punish yourself for being judgmental, right? It's just, I was just judgmental. Um,
There's a wonderful YouTube video of John Kabat-Zinn talking about the the thoughts that come into our mind like soap bubbles. And you can
yeah.
use that, or you can use balloons or leaves or whatever you can imagine. Like just imagining them going by, and with the soap bubble, like they pop,
Yep. Right.
and they have no real meaning other than it's a thought. It came through your mind. We're going to continue to make thoughts. That's what our mind does. And we're just going to watch them kind of pass by and let go and
Right.
come back. Same with judgments.
Right. Right. And that goes into that concept also about just staying curious. Right. I mean, this is how we learn more about ourselves too. Um, Remaining curious.
You can
Mm-hmm.
also learn more from others if you're staying
Mm-hmm.
present too.
Right.
A
And
lot of
it just really can improve your relationships. I know it really has improved mine. And the person on the receiving end when you're practicing mindfulness, I think that there's a real opportunity for them to feel more heard, understood, also when you're practicing mindfulness. And so there's that reciprocal nature, right? And then they're able to be differently in the way maybe that they respond or interact with you as well.
definitely it would change the whole tone of a conversation
Mm-hmm.
if you're
Mm-hmm.
really listening to what the person says versus somewhere else, or thinking about what you want to say, or anything else in line with those things.
Mm-hmm.
Listening to what the person is saying and feeling.
It would be great if we put up some information when we're done today about some of those videos. Maybe we can provide some links and recommend some good readings if you would like to learn more about mindfulness. I think that, in one of our upcoming Facebook Lives, we're also really going to talk about the difference between mindfulness and meditation, the similarities and the differences, because there's a lot to that topic. And oftentimes those terms are used interchangeably. So I just wanted to put that out there. We're not missing that. We're going to get to that because that is something that definitely deserves a conversation.
Absolutely. I think they get confused, just like you said, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go back though, and with the resources you had mentioned early on, the misconception that it's a religious practice, mindfulness.
Right.
And depending on the sources, it is connected with some, if not all, possibly religions.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're talking about someone like John Kabat-Zinn,
Mm-hmm.
who really studied it from a psychological perspective, you can find those secular resources if that's what you would like as well.
Right. Right.
So mindfulness has been studied as a practice. There's
Right.
a lot of different studies and resources you can find. So I'm happy to put those kind of things up there too.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
versus if you do connect with maybe a more religious way of mindfulness, you can find those resources out there too. So it's
Right.
really
I
mhm,
mean, because again, like mindfulness is something we want to practice in all areas of our lives, but it doesn't have to be solely a religious concept. And that's just really important to make note of.
yeah,
But bringing it into your religious practice probably would make it that much more fulfilling and gratifying.
I would imagine. And
Mhm.
it's a daily practice, just to remind. It's a daily, at least for me, it's a daily practice.
Right.
There are times
Right.
throughout the day where I am not in a mindful mindset in the present. And
Right.
I think that's human. I really do.
Hmm. Hmm. And especially like um, doing telehealth, which we've been doing with COVID. It's brought in for me a whole different aspect of practicing mindfulness, and not only for me as a therapist, but for those who I'm working with on the other end, right?
Absolutely.
And so we've really had to learn how to practice it in different ways as therapists.
Yeah. And maybe in that, the tool of mindfulness, I think, is perfect for something like what the example you gave, which is basically we're learning a whole new format
Mm-hmm.
therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So if we can stay in the present moment, you might find, at least I think I have for my clients, find that there's a different dynamic now present, which is the screen. Like, what work can we do while we're using it, basically?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How was this different than it was, 6 months ago? And even if we're not talking about teletherapy, I think everyone's probably in a different situation. Most
Mm-hmm.
of us, at least, are than we
Right.
were 6 months ago when we are talking about the pandemic. So, how
Right.
can this present moment give us something
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's different than the past, that's different than the future?
Mm-hmm. I
So,
love that.
yeah.
That's great.
I think we
So
talked about mindfulness for a while. And
yeah, yeah, yeah. We talk about mindfulness a lot, hence the name
yeah.
Mindful Path,
Mhm.
right? That that we really want to teach people how to live on a mindful path. And the great thing is there are so many amazing resources available on this concept. And again, like we will put some of those out for everybody, whether it be books, videos, and maybe we can also share a link to Marsha Linham, because really it's really helpful to understand these concepts of like observation and describing and what those mean, right? How to do how to practice mindfulness. And she gives a lot of great tips in there.
Absolutely. And just to give everyone a little sneak peek of our next few weeks, we're going to actually be going through all 4 of the
Right,
modules
right,
from
right,
DBT. So it's a really great resource. We can
yeah,
also add John Kabat-Zinn's
for sure.
information. He did mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. Um,
Mm-hmm,
so we can attach that as well.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we will have that for anybody who is interested. And again, we will come back on another Facebook Live and talk about mindfulness in relation to meditation, because it's a very important topic. And yes, we will be talking about in some of our upcoming concepts of DBT, including mindfulness, including distress tolerance,
Interpersonal effectiveness.
emotion regulation. So we will definitely be getting to all those, because those are great daily practices as well.
Yeah. And then if anyone has any questions, they can, of course, send them to us as well. We're going to bring
Absolutely.
resources out.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Right.
Thank you for spending the last 40 minutes mindfully with me.
Exactly. And thank you for spending the time mindfully with me and everybody else as well.
Mhm.
And thank you all. We look forward to seeing you all next week. And we hope you have a great day.
Yes.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.